Hi y'all, this is Tracy. We're back in my kitchen. Of course, you know, Joe and I are always up to something. We share the same kitchen, so that's kind of a problem because there's not a lot of space here, and he bakes, I cook. So today, I'm doing a rib stew. I've never really seen a rib stew done. So if it's out there, I'm not sure if it's the perfect way, but it at least tastes good. So we're getting started with our stew here. This is my Dutch oven. I really love a Dutch oven. I didn't take to it at first, but I've gotten to where I really enjoy it. Now I've taken some ribs and put them in pieces, of course, obviously cut them up, seared them off lightly, added one Sam Adams Oktoberfest, but I decided I wanted to do two. The smell is incredible. I like the way that it's taking on with the meat. And it's a good way to add some flavor without trying to get very crazy with your spices, because sometimes that goes horribly wrong. A dark beer for things like beef that are really strong and hold up to a lot of things. The dark beer is really the way to get some flavor in without actually making a spice mistake that you don't want. So while our beer starts to take form with our ribs here, or flavor with our ribs here, I am going to go cut up some onion, make some beef broth, and some carrot and celery to add to the stew. This will take about 15 minutes so that we really infuse the flavor of that beer into the meat. All right, we've simmered and let our meat kind of get worked in and getting nice and soft. We're going to add, this is about 3 onion. However, they were extremely small. So we're going to go ahead and add that in. We're going to add about, how many cloves of garlic?
That's about 6.
So there's about 6 cloves. These are fresh from our garden. You can go to the store and get them, but we try and do as much here from home as we possibly can. Next, I'm going to add the celery. One thing that I really hate to see is that celery tops are wasted. So if you can see here, whoops, I've got the tops because they have enormous flavor. So this is just all that bushy stuff that comes in the middle and on the ends of your celery. Gives great flavor. It's a wonderful thing to keep adding in. Pick up my little mess here. And the last thing is going to, for vegetable, is going to be carrots. Of course, you can't have a good stew. So it's about 4 things of celery, 4 things of carrots, about 6 garlic cloves. If your onions are bigger, of course, you can choose anywhere from a half to a whole onion. And that's just based on preference. It's really hard for me because when I was learning to cook, I was pretty much just told a dash, a pinch, something of that didn't sound like a cup of thing. So now I'm trying to get better at it. But if I miss it, you can tell me about it. This is a great invention. So you always want to add tomatoes to a stew. My husband is terribly bad about eating a lot of tomato, so I tend to buy crushed or diced, but this is actually a diced tomato in a tomato sauce. It is hard to find. It took me several tries to get it, but you can always use whole tomatoes, crushed tomatoes. This is a preference thing. I'm trying to teach some of my friends about some of the recipes that we use here at home. And one of the things that I always tell them is, use your imagination. Now, if you wouldn't eat it as a combination, you know, then don't put it in your food to make, because it's a really bad situation when you get done. If it's something that you say, oh, I would love to eat corn with ketchup. Well, okay. It's all in what you like. The important things at the end is that you keep tasting your food. Don't be super excited to add anything. This is 1 can of tomato paste. This just helps broaden that sweetness in the stew. Don't be afraid to try things, but remember when you try them in small amounts, because if you don't like it, you can't take it away, and that tends to make a mess of usually a decent sized meal. So instead of doing that, just simply add a little bit, taste a little bit, add a little bit, taste a little bit, but make sure you're giving a good 10 minutes in between tasting it, because it needs a little time to get in there. Don't assume that just because it's now in, that it's totally flavored, because it does have to simmer, and salt, especially with things like tomatoes, the tomatoes just suck up the flavor. Potatoes, tomatoes, things that are really grabby to herbs and spices, make sure that you do give adequate time for it to simmer in, or you'll have a nice salt bomb, which won't be good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a cup or two of a cup or two of beef broth. I'm going to try and cover everything, and then I'm going to let it simmer probably around 2 to 3 hours, depending on how everything cooks down and making sure the vegetables are cooked off and that they get soft. And we'll be right back with you after we get that done. Okay, so of course, with just what we have in here, this is going to be too dry, plus we want a little flavor, so we're going to do Worcestershire. It's going to account to about a half a cup. More if you're really crazy about it, because I actually am. I love the flavor of Worcestershire in our food. Same with parsley. Everything's a taste base. If you are really a fond person. For mine, I usually add in about 3 to 4 tablespoons. This is a larger pot. And later when I taste it, I'll know if that's something that I need more of, I don't need more of. When I add salt and pepper toward the end. The other thing I did was take some Knorr bouillon cubes. We just added the cubes per the instructions, and we're going to fill the pot until basically everything is covered. So hopefully here I got it about right. This is 4 cups. We're almost perfect. I would prefer a little more space left at the top, just because it makes it hard when you start turning the temperature up, of course, that it's going to go over. We're going to try and work with this scenario. But with those rib bones in there, which is actually going to add so much, because you get the bone marrow, it's almost like making a bone broth for yourself as well as getting the soup out of it. So with those ribs down there, it's adding a lot of extra to the space. So we'll just keep watching it. We'll keep it simmering out at about 4 on the stove, which is a little under medium if your stove isn't marked that way. We'll just keep watching it. Hopefully nothing spills over, but it will not be the first time it's happened. So as you can see, we've made it to the end of our stew, and you can also see that I happened to change pots. I went ahead and threw it in the crock pot because it was a little more than I anticipated with having the rib bones in it. I will tell you that that meat is incredible. It is amazing to have in there. And the beer braise gave it just a fantastic flavor. So one of the things that I actually realized halfway through not filming but just being done with it was I actually forgot potatoes. So if you were sitting at home going, where's the potatoes? You were right. I went back and added them. So of course this stew is not done yet because of that. The potatoes are still a little crunchy. And that, you know, that's the difficulty of learning to do things online with people and talking about what I do at home naturally, but don't necessarily teach to other people. As I said before, you know, I was in a family that just didn't do a lot of measuring. It was all done by flavor, taste, preference. So it's a good lesson for me, but I was a little nervous and forgot the potatoes. One of the things that I did do later on is kind of drain some of the oils because ribs tend to make a lot of oil. I did drain a little bit off the top just to keep it a little bit lighter and healthier. Yeah, I know there's not always a way to be healthy about everything, but I tried to remove some of that oil. One of the things that I will have to do to the ribs is pull them out, put them on a cutting board, cut the meat off, because ribs do have the silver skin, which is at the back. So I don't really want to touch it too much, that's really hot. This fatty layer that's in the back is a silver skin, and it is always easier not to try and chew on rubber. And that is precisely what that silver skin is like. So you'll notice it bubbles and cooks and stuff. This will be cut away from the bone when I'm ready. And it is a more complicated way of doing things, which I knew that doing a rib base would be. But I will say it was well worth it. That flavor is absolutely phenomenal with the rib meat and the bone marrow, making the broth actually better for you, because everybody knows that a good bone broth is healthier and adds so much to your diet. So with that, I'm gonna close. I hope that your stew comes out as amazing. Remember, add a little here and there if you don't care for the flavor you've got immediately. Remember to add salt and pepper toward the end, and wait for it to kind of cook in. And as all, God bless.